you do want to look into the links, the backlink profile of the website before you purchase it, and see, what sort of links are coming in and bringing traffic to the site. And then asking the seller if any of those are paid links.
Welcome back to the Teach Traffic podcast with myself, Ilana Wexler. This is a show where we reveal the best tips, tricks, and tactics to increasing your website traffic and then converting that traffic into leads and sales. We also discuss what's working right now in the ever-changing world of web marketing so you can apply it to your business. Welcome back to another episode of Teach Traffic. This is episode number 67, and I'm your host, Ilana Wexler. And today we're talking all about the due diligence that you need to do and what you need to look for before buying an online business. Now, I have talked about this whole concept of buying an online business versus building one back in episode 44, but we talk about different things in this episode. I'm interviewing a guest called Jaryd Krause, and we're going to talk about all the different monetization options that you could look for. So be it the different types of businesses that monetize different ways, how to do proper due diligence, some low-hanging fruit to look for, the various price points to consider, advice when Jaryd was if he was just starting out, and really everything in between. So if you've ever considered buying an online business versus building one from scratch, you definitely want to listen to this episode. And we're going to make show notes available for you at teachtraffic.com. And I really hope that you enjoy this episode. And as always, if you need help with mastering paid traffic, you can check out our online community at teachtraffic.com/training. I've actually launched a lower end option of just an Ask Me Anything for just $19 a month. So you can check that out. And but yeah, let's get stuck into today's episode.
Everybody's got a different perspective on why they would buy our website and what they would do to it to scale it. So I help people buy and scale, and let's jump in.
Awesome. All right. So why don't we touch on the why then, considering that you sort of touched on that. Why would somebody consider buying a site versus building a new one completely from scratch? What sort of the main reasons why?
Well, it takes time to really start to get traction with the website business in terms of traffic and getting your marketing down and your sales down, your sales process, having a good structure of SEO and all these different things and components that come with owning an online business. It can really take time to get data on what's working, what's not working, weed it out to get a higher functioning website in all of those aspects I just mentioned. And it can take a lot of time, effort, energy, and money. And then for those people who have done this before, they already know what sort of strategies are going to work. Although they can just supersede that and achieve their result a lot faster if they go away and buy something. And then for those who don't know how to start an online business or haven't done it before, I mean, this failure rate of startups is very, very high. It's over 90% of startups fail. And that was one of my reasons is I sucked at the start. I started 2 different website businesses. I learned a lot through the process, but I realized, well, if I can skip that failure rate, why don't I go away and buy something that is in that 10% and already has a proven track record of making money every month, and then just add on my skills to that.
Yeah, nice. I mean, I personally can see the merit in buying a site versus building. There's the opportunity cost of money and time spent in building one. Most people realize that you pay with money or with time, but often you do pay with both in building a new one from scratch versus buying an existing one though. What would you say? I mean, there's so many different types of websites that you can possibly buy in terms of their monetization strategy, be it like an e-commerce site versus a content site versus an affiliate site. What would you say is the best type of website to buy? So let's say, one of our listeners says, yep, I've committed to buying a site. and they're sort of exploring the possible options, which type of website do you think is the best one to buy, or is there a best one?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I wouldn't say there's a best one for anybody to buy. It's very per person basis and individual. So like I mentioned before, I learned some skills in SEO and a bit of digital marketing when I first started my sites. And I learned a lot about drop shipping. And so I went down the route of finding a site that was within the drop shipping niche. And I was either going to have a drop shipping e-commerce type business, or one that was either a content type membership based business that was within drop shipping. So I went for the niche rather than the business model.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's not necessarily always the most important way to go or the best way to go, because sometimes people can become quite fixated on the niche and they struggle to find something that's within that niche. And then we have other people that throw around the words like you need to be passionate about the niche and what you're working in. And whilst that has some merit, there's also, it's a double-edged sword where people can be so passionate about something they can have a bit of a blindfold on to some of the things that aren't working in the business and run it into the ground as well, which I've seen happen. And so it really depends on the person who's purchasing the business and finding passion in the type of work that they would do. So for example, I may not love drop shipping, but I may love the niche, or vice versa. I may not love the niche. Say, for example, I bought a business before that hasn't been in a niche that I absolutely love, but I love the business model. And I love that I could dig in and do some paid marketing, some paid traffic like you do and all your listeners are into as well. And then you've got other people that have learned a little bit about SEO and they go, well, I'd probably prefer to do organic traffic and, create content and just run an affiliate site like that, or a content website like that. So I don't think there's one particular business model that's better for everybody. I feel it's better for that person who's going to invest in a website is understand what role they're going to love about driving the business. And that's going to help them focus on what type of business model to go down for.
Yeah. My apologies. Yeah. That was probably a bit of a difficult question and a grey area.
It's such a good question though. Like I wouldn't say it's a thing to apologize about, because everybody comes to me and says, hey, Jaryd, what sort of business should I buy? And that's the answer that I give them every single time. It's really dependent on who that is. So it's actually, in fact, quite the opposite. It was a great question. So thank you.
The thing is though, you touched on, my expertise, and obviously listeners of this podcast are into traffic, specifically paid traffic. Let's let's pretend that's our target customer, somebody who has paid traffic skills. What then would you say is a good type of business to buy? Would it be a business that is currently not doing paid traffic and then that's a good bolt-on of their skills that they could add, or a business that is already doing paid traffic and possibly that person could do it better?
I would say both. So you've got, in terms of business model, I would probably suggest sticking away from content websites, like publishing websites. And the reason being is because, the margins aren't so high on some affiliate products and ads and stuff like that. And to run pay-per-click campaigns, you may not be getting the margins you actually want. And then, so I'd probably stick against that. But with, that in mind, you've got an e-commerce, different types of e-commerce website businesses and say SaaS or membership website businesses that may do some marketing or, don't do it at all, but you could add your skill set to that. So when you're looking for one of these birds up businesses to buy, is look at the opportunity that's involved with your skill set, and then you can plug that in and really, get a higher return on your investment from those particular type of websites.
Like one thing that springs to my head is if, let's say, I were to buy a content site that ranks organically and gets a lot of SEO traffic, a good bolt-on for me would be, well, I can create a pretty good retargeting campaign just to leverage that existing traffic that site's already getting and possibly create my own info product for it and then hit the ground running that way. So eliminating the whole, as you say, the slim margins of affiliate stuff, and then sort of the whole concept of buying traffic with enough of that margin, possibly sell your own product and then bolt that on. What do you reckon?
Yeah, that's such a good strategy, is like when you can see sites that are doing like cold traffic, and they're just getting some cold traffic in, but they're not really utilizing remarketing and pixeling people and haven't got a good remarketing campaign happening. You can come in and, with that skill set, you can really work that business to get a better return than the previous owner was, doing with their ads. And vice versa, maybe they were doing remarketing and they were just exhausting that, that remarketing list or that audience, and the frequency was quite high on the ads. You could come in and use your cold traffic skills to boost that traffic amount up. So then you can also increase that audience that you're remarketing to as well.
What would you say would be some low-hanging fruit? Like if you were looking at buying, let's say, a handful of different businesses, what's some low-hanging fruit that you would look for in certain businesses to buy?
Yeah, certainly would be what we just mentioned there, is that somebody may look at a business with the lens of, hey, I've got good skills with paid marketing. That's a low-hanging fruit, seeing where that marketing hasn't been done to the level that you're looking, the skill set that you have, and you could come in and use your skill set to change that marketing or add your flair to that marketing. As the same goes with content websites and not having an email list. So many content websites are actually so focused on organic traffic that they're so susceptible to a Google algorithm change, and they don't realize that they can reduce that risk by building out an email list. So if there isn't an email list, that is a huge low-hanging fruit that you can add to the business. And then also for those sites, say even if it is in e-commerce and they do have an email list, is ask how often do they email it? Do they have an abandoned cart sequence set up? How often are they promoting to the list? Are they quite engaged? What are their open rates and all that sort of stuff? And there's some really good low-hanging fruits.
Yeah, nice. With people buying an e-commerce site, is it pretty typical that they reveal who their suppliers are, etc.? Is that sort of...
So you need to sign an NDA, so a non-disclosure agreement, and you kind of want to work out, you do want to be in contact with the suppliers to work out, if that contract's still going to apply, and if the same rates are still going to apply, if they're still going to do the same service that they're running for the previous owner. So I think it's really important, and to sign an NDA and also to have your previous seller sign an NCA as well, so they can't just go away and grab that, use that same wholesaler or supplier or whatever it is and start another business using the same person, but in direct competition with you since you've just bought their site. So that's a huge thing to understand and remember as well.
Yeah. I would imagine, you're sort of embarking on probably an expensive purchase, obviously, depending on the size of the business we'll get to. And I'll sort of talk about price points a little bit later. But I would imagine a huge part of this process is the due diligence process. Do you want to sort of unpack what due diligence people need to do in order to really go in armed with the knowledge that they're buying a good website and it's sort of sound and that sort of dodgy practice hasn't been done? Do you want to sort of touch on some of those things that people should look for?
Yeah, certainly. This is the main thing that I teach within my community is I have a whole course on how to buy a business, and it's just focused solely on due diligence and the right questions to ask the seller depending on the type of business model you are buying.
Yeah.
So the main key areas of due diligence are SEO due diligence, marketing due diligence, financial due diligence, and the competition. So they're the key types of things you need to be checking. So through the SEO, you really need to be looking at what the traffic's doing. Is it trending up, down, sideways? And most importantly, asking the question of why. Like, why is the traffic trending that certain way? For example, sometimes people look at businesses and they see that the business's traffic is trending down so heavily through a certain period of the year, and they just think, oh, this business is a bit shaky and fluctuating. And it could be a business that is in the e-commerce space selling swimwear. And then when it hits summer, like they turn away and don't buy the business. It hits summer and they go, wow, okay, that business went through the roof. And they may have just missed out on a really good opportunity because they didn't understand that traffic was dipping down because of seasonality. It's the same thing with Google algorithm updates. You need to check if the site has been rocked by a Google change, algorithm change within the SEO. And looking at the
on that, like let's say a site has been rocked by a SEO algorithm update, would you typically see like sort of a cliff drop in traffic or a gradual decline or increase, depending if they've been positively or negatively
impacted? It really depends on the update, and it really depends on the niche in the site. So sometimes you can have a huge spike down, or it can be a gradual one. In terms of like, what would I do to a site that has been affected heavily by an algorithm update, is kind of look at the overall SEO profile of the website, like the domain authority, the level of content it has, the rankings of those articles and pages, and kind of see like, hey, can I bring this around to the opposite side of why the site was actually affected? And most oftentimes it's a no. I don't want to catch a falling knife, or I tell my clients, we don't want to catch a falling knife. But if it is something that's the person who's purchasing the site is very confident in their SEO skills and their content marketing skills, and they're very certain they can reverse that, then by all means, that's like an opportunity. Like some problems are just opportunities in disguise. So it is quite business dependent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So sorry, we digest a bit off the due diligence, but did you want me to keep going, or did you have more questions within that?
I just had a question within the SEO side of things. I mean, as you know, I'm a paid traffic person, but I tell people I know enough about SEO to be dangerous.
Yeah.
By no means an SEO expert. But what about situations? I know lots of SEO people build links to a site in order to get it to rank. What about a situation where, you know, somebody's selling a site that's ranking, they sell the site and then they remove those links?
Yeah.
Is there a way of detecting that might happen?
Yeah. So this is such a juicy question, and I'm very similar with you. That just for everybody know, a bit of a disclaimer: I know enough to be dangerous as well, but I'm not the expert in SEO. Yeah, such a good juicy question, this one. Like, if you do want to look into the links, the backlink profile of the website before you purchase it, and see, you know, what sort of links are coming in and bringing traffic to the site, and then asking the seller if any of those are paid links, because sometimes, you know, you might need to keep paying for the link. Or it might be attached to a PBN, which is a private blog network, which is basically a syndication of different blogs that will be linking into the site to boost its traffic up. But sometimes those PBNs are non-relevant links with sending non-relevant traffic, which can decrease your bounce rate and time on page, which decreases your overall SEO profile. But getting to that question of like, what happens, like, is there a way to prevent the owner being affected, or the new owner or yourself being affected by a link being removed and it decreasing rankings? Is if it's a paid link, then you want to know if it's paid and keep paying, I guess, until you can get enough traffic to warrant removing that link and putting a different link in place instead. That's what my suggestion would be. In terms of like people that have bought sites and they've got a couple of good articles that are ranking quite high, and I've had this happen to a client of mine. He bought a site where a few of his articles were ranking quite high, bringing in most of his traffic, and he dipped from a Google page rank 1 to 2. and lost a lot of traffic. And then what he had to do wasn't because of a backlink. It was because of a competitor had built out another article which was superior. So he had to just leapfrog them again. But in terms of the question with the backlink, I would say if you're paying for it, then you can keep paying for it and keep that. But the backlink isn't the only thing that's going to help you get ranked. If that makes sense. Like it could drop your rankings, but that may not be the only thing that's causing that. And if it did drop your rankings, look for a backlink that's superior to the previous one so you can get your rankings back up.
Yeah. What tool do you use to really evaluate the backlinks and the domain authority of those backlinks?
So SEMrush and Ahrefs are the two ones that I recommend people go away and use.
Do you need both of them, or would SEMrush?
No, yeah, SEMrush is I recommend most people go to SEMrush, and it's basically they're very, very similar. They're competitors, so
yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. I guess that also you raised an interesting point where if, predominantly most of their traffic is coming from, let's say, one or two articles, that if they lose those rankings on those articles, a significant portion of their traffic disappears. Therein lies the risk of, all that due diligence that you'd need to do to see, is most of the traffic coming from one or two pages, therefore you're at risk of losing those rankings and therefore all your traffic,
Yeah, that's right. Like you could lose, if you got 2 pages bringing in 50% of the traffic each, that's a huge risk. And so many people, I think a lot of people that are into niche content websites or any sort of content websites is that they're so heavy into that space and getting traffic and organic, and it's becomes a normality that to have a couple of pages bringing most of the traffic, and they forget that I believe that they forget that there's a better approach. And that's why I'm huge on telling people to build out an email list. In case you lose rankings, then you don't need to lose traffic because you can still send them to your website. And then also, instead of just focusing on those top 2 articles, say for example, site does have those top 2 articles, focus on refining existing content to bring that up to scratch to a point where you're not leaning on those 2 key pillar posts or articles. You've got some backup ones that are bringing in a good chunk of traffic as well.
Yeah. Interestingly, let's say you encounter a business that does not have an email list. Are they valued lower because of that, or does it almost not even come into play?
It does come into play, but a broker wouldn't focus on that. They wouldn't say, hey, this business is discounted because it doesn't have an email list. They would just say, hey, this is a good business because it doesn't have an email list. Right. It's got good opportunity. So they'd flip it around. My belief is that a business is far more valuable with an email list. And so even if somebody was to buy a business and they left it exactly the same it is, but they built out a thriving email list that's highly engaged and has great open rates, but that business's value would be a lot higher if nothing else changed except for the list and you put it back on the market.
I mean, you're preaching to the converted here. I completely agree.
Yeah.
With you. So it's not a leading question in that respect, but like I agree. Like I see so many content sites, affiliate sites that have no email opt-ins, and I think you guys are crazy. Like such a missed opportunity. And I mean, like I deal with paid traffic. Obviously, that's what I live and breathe, but still, regardless, I have access to so many people's Google Analytics, and regardless of all our paid traffic endeavors, by far and away, the highest converting traffic source for pretty much all our clients in teachtraffic.com or my agency is email.
Yeah. I'm so glad we're talking about this because I'm the same. Like email is everything. Even if I was to not have a content driven business or a content site, and I was to just be in business selling any product or service, if I could not have an email list, I would probably not be in business.
Totally, 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's such an amazing way to communicate with your audience and to really develop that relationship. And it's funny, in all my emails that I send to my database, I encourage people to reply to my emails, and people do, and I love it. And I start engaging in a chat with them, about whatever they're doing and working on. And it's such an amazing way to communicate with people. And I'll even have some people reply going, is this really going to go to you? And I'm like, yes, it is. Like, I am a person and I will respond. It's pretty funny. Okay, so let's get back to what we've been talking about. You mentioned the 4 elements that you look for in terms of the due diligence. So we've obviously touched on SEO.
Yeah.
What about marketing? I guess maybe that the whole concept of an email database falls under that. The third thing you mentioned was financial. Do you want to maybe touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. And if you'd like to touch on marketing a bit deeper, we can as well, because I know that paid traffic's huge here. But let's just quickly run over the financial ones. When you're coming to buy a business, traditionally anything under the 50K range or 100K range, people will just send you like an Excel sheet with their P&L and sometimes screenshots of their Xero account or QuickBooks or whatever people are using around the world. And it's just I really want to stress on this point that it's not good enough because people can just put any old figure into that Excel sheet and that's a screenshot where they could have butchered the numbers. So I'm find it really important to have viewers access of the business's merchant account and see if you can even get viewers access or do a screen share with their business's bank account and cross-reference all the numbers. That's so important. And if it gets to a point where the numbers are too much for you to be confident in, then have somebody, an accountant, look over it for you and verify all of that. That's so important. Like a lot of people are just like, yep, cool, it's making money. I see some screenshots, and it's just not. It's not the best way to verify your financials. Also, there's so many questions within the business. So I've had somebody that I know somebody that's gone and bought a business before, and they did so many sales. Like the business did so many sales leading up to the sale of the business. So they made a bunch of revenue, but they didn't include the expenses. And just ridiculous, right? And the poor guy asked, so like, hey, I just want to confirm that there's no additional expenses or there's nothing, being paid for that's, contributing to these sales. Can you just confirm that and verify that? And the person lied. So they bought the business from exchangemarketplace.com, which is where people can list their Shopify sites for sale. And yeah, he bought this site and the business is making money, still a little bit of money, which is good. He owns it, but he's just, it's been a bad experience for him because that person just lied and he didn't go away and verify that and check it. And it sucks. So yeah, you need to just be verifying these things, guys.
Yeah, for sure. Big lesson. Did you want to, touch on something with the marketing aspect, which was your second point?
Yeah, for sure. Like with the marketing, it's the same question as you're asking throughout all of the due diligence and the SEO as well, is like what's working, what's not working, and why. So digging in, like if you can get like viewers access of like I've sold a business where I gave viewers access to my Google Ads account. And you can give that access to Facebook ads accounts and all your different ad accounts. And you can analytics, everything. Mm-hmm. So, and you sign an NDA, so you're not going to use that, that data to your advantage. And you can go away and look at, if you're a digital marketer and you're highly effective in your digital marketing and have been for other businesses, you can go in and look at the marketing strategy, their ads. And this is what you do, Alana, is you can go away and look in and be like, all right, cool. This is what they're doing good. This is what they're not doing good. And therein lies some of the low hanging fruits itself.
Sure. Cool. Alrighty. What about competition? Do you like an industry which is really competitive or not much at all, or it depends?
I guess it depends on the business and the niche and what they're selling. If there's a, I'm looking at mainly direct competitors, not indirect competitors. So direct competitors are people that are selling the same types of products and services, and solely selling those ones, as are you if you're purchasing that particular business. And so I would say I'd like to see other competition and just see what they're doing well and see what they're not doing well. And then it's kind of like when you go away and look at other people's marketing campaigns and ads and stuff like that, you can kind of like model what they're doing. And that's a big part of the thing that I look at when buying a site is I look at the competitors and say, all right, cool. What is the business that I'm looking at buying not doing, and how hard would it be to replicate what that other competitor is doing?
Mm-hmm.
And are they worlds away? And is it like, do I need to be spending, 10 million a year on paid ads to get there, compared to like, hardly any, maybe only 100K or something a year. So really seeing what the big gap is and seeing how you could bridge the gap and if it's a possibility at all.
Yeah, cool. If you were starting out from scratch, you never bought a site before, what would you do? Like what type of site would you buy? I know it depends on your skill set, but I guess, yeah, like what advice would you give somebody who's never bought a site before is kind of where I'm going with this question.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's, if you've never bought a website before, with this, and it also does depend on your skill set as well, and your financial background. So it is quite individual. But if you've never bought a website before, I'd say definitely start off at the lower end of the spectrum, right? Buy something around the 20 to 50K range, and learn how to run that business, learn how to do the marketing or the SEO, and learn those skills, and even hire a VA. And then slowly work your way up, build that up a bit, and then you can either keep it or sell it, and then buy something bigger. But I'd start off at a smaller, financial mark in between that 20 to 50K range. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't try and not do something that's a difficult business to run. Content websites are very simple to run. You just need to produce great content. Like, it depends on how deep you want to get into that. Like, if you're going to pay for all the tools like SEMrush, Ahrefs, and Market Muse, and do all these, a big expensive content marketing strategy. But if you just wanted to, follow what the previous owner was doing and it was working, it'd be a pretty simple and easy business to run. I really advise those who are looking at buying an e-commerce website that have zero marketing experience to not go down that route unless they're committed to paying a lot of money and spending a lot of time on becoming a great digital marketer, because the competition in e-commerce is only getting fiercer and fiercer, actually in all online businesses. And if you're coming up against somebody that's got some skills with marketing, you're going to have a really tough time in that business.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that lower end of the market, the 20 to 50K. Let's sort of touch on the various price points there are, sort of a good segue to that. And I guess the multiples that people use to get to those price points. I mean, for some people, 20K is a lot of money, especially to throw in to something that could be perceived as a bit of a gamble, excuse me, if it's going to work. So how do people get to those price points? Do you want to maybe touch on that?
Yeah. So how are the businesses valued at those price points, you mean? Yeah. So you're right. Like 20K is a decent sum of money, and most of these are in US dollars as well. And then when you get up to 50K and 100K, it can be, it can be getting up there. And if somebody is buying a business with 50K cash, it's a huge feat. So, pat yourself on the back for that too. So how do they get to that price range? Now, content websites have a different multiple to some e-commerce websites, and then the highest multiple out of them all are like SaaS and membership type businesses, because of the levels of risk. Now, not a multiple will be via months normally. Normally, it's a monthly multiple in the website.
A multiple of profit or revenue?
Yeah, a multiple of net profit. So how it'll work would be for a content website. Say the business, well, let's just do round numbers, right? So we'll do 100K website. Say a business is for sale for 100K. If you divide that by 3, so it's normally like 36 months multiple, which is 3 years. So if you divide that by 3 and then divide that by 12, normally a 100K website will be making $2,700 net profit per month. So what the website brokers do is they get the business and they work out what their average monthly net profit is. Normally it'll be over 12 months, and that's what I'd suggest they value the net profit average out over. Sometimes what they do is they see the best 3 to 6 months, and they might go, all right, cool, the best 4 months have been these 4 months, and we're going to average, we're going to make the average net profit from those 3 to 4 months, and then they'll times their multiple by that average net profit. So that's a little trick and a tactic that they may use to value the business. So then they might go, all right, cool, a content website may be, all right, roughly around 30, a multiple of 30, right? So they'll get that average monthly net profit and times that by 30, and that will be the price of the business. And sometimes they might see, all right, this business has 2 articles, like we mentioned before, that are ranked and bringing in most of the traffic. And that could be a little bit of a risk. So they may bring that down a bit, right? And if it has a good email list, they may bump it up a little bit, like put an extra multiple on it, make it 32. So it really depends on the business with the multiple that they put on it.
Right.
Does that make sense, or was that very confusing?
No. It does make sense. To me, it feels quite high, like based on 36 months or 3 years worth of profit. Is that, given there are so many risks, given that you are at the mercy really of Google ranking you and an potential algorithm updates, etc. I mean, maybe I'm completely off here. You know, am I off? I don't know. Does that feel high to you? Like,
so
it'll take you 3 years to pay off that investment, basically.
Correct.
If you do nothing.
Yeah, if you did nothing. That's right. So normally it's roughly a 20 to 30% return on your investment per year. Now that is an amazing ROI, but you're right. There's those risks there involved with, being heavily reliant on Google. So if you're and we've seen content websites sell for up to a multiple of, 36 to 40 and 42 even. And those content websites are the ones that have a lot of great keywords ranking, a lot of great articles ranking. They're not reliant on just one affiliate like Amazon. They've got multiple affiliates, and they're not through an affiliate commission program. They've gone directly to the retailers and become an affiliate with them. So they've decreased their risk a lot with the spread of traffic, also with a spread of income diversification. And they may have a really good email list that's thriving as well. And their brand is quite good. And the audience, the bounce rate's high and the time on page is quite high. That is an exceptional business that is worthy, in my opinion, of 30 plus, 36 plus multiple, because it's a lot easier to maintain. And you've got this platform that, you can add some content marketing skills to, or paid traffic skills to as well. And it's the same with an e-commerce website business, right? If it's a very niche product and it's doing great, and the marketing funnel's been working for a long time without any tweaks, so got a good email list, abandoned cart email sequence, and all that sort of stuff, all those things stack up and they make the business better and better.
Yeah.
One thing that I tell people is that, you get what you pay for.
Mm.
And because I used to be a plumber, I use this analogy. If you're going to go away and buy a tape measure from Crazy Clark's or a discount store for a couple of dollars, it's only going to last you so long, and it's going to decay and break down, and it's going to be hard to use, and you're going to get a bad return on your investment. But if you go away and buy like a $50 tape measure, you are going to have that for a lot longer, and your ROI is going to be so much higher. One of the things that Warren Buffett says, who's the most successful business investor in the world, is he says it's better to buy a good business at a fair price than a fair business at a good price.
I totally agree with that. If somebody, has listened to this episode and thinks, yeah, okay, I want to explore this option, where is somewhere that they could go to find businesses for sale that they could buy?
Yeah. So there's so many places. If you type into Google website brokers, check that out. For first timers, I'd suggest going to website brokers. You got Empire Flippers, FE International, investors.club, motioninvest.com, Quiet Light Brokerage. There's so many that I like. Those are probably the top picks off the top of my head.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm mindful of the time. So thank you so much for coming on today's episode. For the listeners that kind of want to find out more about you and the products and services that you offer, where can people find out more about you? Sure.
Thank you so much as well for having me. I've had a great time today.
Yeah, awesome.
Going deep as well was really good. People can just find.
I feel like we could do a part 2, to be honest. Like, I'm just watching the clock here, but I've got actually a whole list of other questions that I can ask you. But anyway,
well, maybe we can. I know that you're going to come on my podcast. So maybe if you want to do another one, we can keep on rolling with this. It's been fun.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So if people want to check out, more about my stuff, just go to buyingonlinebusinesses.com. So buying online businesses, plural. They can see the podcast. We've been ranked in the top 3 best passive income podcasts online. So you can check that out. And that's just the free content to check out. And if people vibe with it, awesome. If they don't, awesome as well. It's not their thing, and they can stay in your podcast and you can help them with their paid ads.
Sounds good. Jaryd, Thank you so much for taking time out of your day and coming on. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to going on yours.
Yeah, me too. That's going to be great fun. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for listening to the Teach Traffic podcast. For more information on each of these episodes and handy PDFs that you can download, head on over to teachtraffic.com.